Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to continue our college football predictions with Week 6. Last week I went 18-7, which brings my total season record to 55-25. Last week we had a stacked week. This week, not so much, but I could find a good diamond in the rough this week. But let's start off with Friday Night Football, where we have the West Virginia Mountaineers taking on the BYU Cougars. West Virginia last week, they lost to Utah, and BYU won a tough road game against Colorado. And BYU is favored by almost 20 points in this one. So there's not an instance that I will go against BYU in this. They're at home, it's a Friday night. What more can you say? And now we're going to go to Athens, Georgia, where the Georgia Bulldogs will be taking on the Kentucky Wildcats. Kentucky lost to South Carolina last week, and I don't think anyone else expected a different result. And Georgia lost to its daddy. I'm not going to tell you who daddy is, but if you know, you know. And I think Georgia's going to come off firing on all cylinders because they're not taking on said daddy. But goes to show you that Georgia could only beat every other team except daddy. And I need to stop saying the word daddy. Moving on, we have Iowa State taking on Cincinnati. Iowa State beat up on Arizona last week and it made it look pretty easy at that. And Cincinnati pulled off a huge road win over Kansas. A high scoring affair at that. And so it's kind of surprising to me that Cincinnati is favored in this one. But not by much, meaning that this game could go in any direction. But I kind of believe Iowa State a little more. I'm going to go with the Cyclones to win this game. And next up, we have our big noon kickoff game between the Wisconsin Badgers taking on the Michigan Wolverines. Both teams had bye weeks last week, but the last time we saw these two teams, Wisconsin got embarrassed at home against Maryland, and Michigan beat Nebraska in a very close affair. I feel like both teams were in the same level. And this one, given that I'm no longer a believer in Wisconsin football, I think Michigan should take this game soundly over their rivals. Now we have the Fighting Illini taking on the Purdue Boilermakers. Illinois took care of USC in the last second. I called that. And Purdue, yes, they had a bye week last week, but the last time I saw them, sure they lost to Notre Dame, but they put up a good fight against them. I think the fans and I think the fans for Purdue, they'll take that any day. And yeah, I'm gonna go with Illinois to win this game. And I know the spread said this game will be closer than you think. I think I agree with them on that. Now we got two schools that I no longer trust. We have Boston College taking on Pitt. Boston College losing to Cal at home, while Pitt blew a lead against Louisville. Goes to show you that you should never trust Boston College or Pitt. And Bill O'Brien is still a hack. And because Bill O'Brien is still a hack, I'm taking Pitt to win. But if they lose this game, they pretty much about done with Pitt and Coach Narduzzi. Now we got two teams desperate for a win anywhere. We got the Clemson Tigers taking on the North Carolina Tar Heels. Both teams had bye weeks, but the last time we saw them, we really wish we didn't. Clemson losing at home to Syracuse, basically knocking them out of the postseason contention. And North Carolina got embarrassed on the road against UCF. But I could break down both of these teams' massive problems. But if you watch the games, it shows. And for this one, even though this game will be played in Chapel Hill, I gotta go with Clemson in this one. Now we got the Kansas State Wildcats taking on the Baylor Bears. Kansas State picked up a win last week, and Baylor, they too also, I think they won last week as well. And both of these teams, this game will be played in Baylor. I think this one can go in any direction. And because of that, I'm just going to lean towards the home team to take care of business. But I will not be surprised if Kansas State wins. Now we got the game on the CW. Wake Forest Demon Deacons taking on the Virginia Tech Hokies. Wake went to overtime against top 14 ranked Georgia Tech. And they almost won, but instead of going for the tie and double overtime, Wake decided to go for the kill, and they missed. Meanwhile, Virginia Tech won their second straight game after firing their coach Brett Pry, beating NC State on the road, picking up a huge road win at that. And with this game being favored in Virginia Tech's with 6.5 favorites, I'm going to go with the Hokies to win this game. But I do expect this to be a pretty good battle. I think both of these teams are evenly matched. Now we got a TNT battle between the Oklahoma State Cowboys taking on the Arizona Wildcats. Oklahoma State lost to Baylor, and Arizona lost to Iowa State. Not much to be said. And yeah, 20-point favorites. I think Arizona State shouldn't have a problem here. Oklahoma State is one of the worst, not only Big 12 schools, Power 4 schools in college football. UCLA is a disaster. Now we got a pretty interesting SEC matchup between the Texas Longhorns and the Florida Gators. Both teams had bye weeks and desperately needed them. Although Texas momentum has been honestly inconsistent. I mean, they've won their non-conference games except for Ohio State, but they have not looked impressive in them. Meanwhile, Florida, they're dealing with the gauntlet of their schedule and are currently sitting at 1-3. And with the bye week, they're already getting a freshman wide receiver who's supposed to be pretty good. They're getting him for the first time this week. And I know the odds saying Texas is probably going to win this game. I think Florida does have a shot here. If they live up to their all that preseason potential, I think they have a shot against Texas. But for now, I expect this to be a pretty ugly game. I don't expect a lot of points here because both defenses, they have promise. I'm going to go with the Longhorns to win. And now we got college game day site for Vanderbilt and Alabama. Vanderbilt beat Utah State, but they made it much harder than it seems, and Alabama repeated a tired narrative. And I could go on a bit of a conspiracy rant on why they chose this for game day over Miami and Florida State, but I'm not gonna do all that. Just remember last year when Vanderbilt not only took upset the number one ranked Tide at home. That was an insane moment in sports last year. Goes to show you that anybody can get beat in any given day. And I think Alabama pretty much had this game circled on their calendar the most. 'Cause I feel like that was one of Alabama's most embarrassing defeat since I want to say it's their most embarrassing defeat pretty much this decade by far. And with Alabama starting to click on all cylinders, I think they should take care of business against Vanderbilt. But if Vanderbilt wins on the road against the Tide, oh boy, that's all I'm going to say. And now we got a pretty good ACC matchup between the Virginia Cavaliers taking on the Louisville Cardinals. Virginia getting a stunning victory over Florida State in double OT, while Louisville got a come from behind victory over Pitt. Even though Virginia is now ranked, Louisville's actually favored, and with this game being at home, I'm going with Louisville to win. I'm expecting this to be one of the underrated games of the week. And now we have another evenly matchup between the Washington Huskies taking on the Maryland Terrapins. Washington lost to the Ohio State Buckeyes, and Maryland went on the had a bye week last week, but last time we saw them, they went on the road and not only beat, they kind of embarrassed Wisconsin, and they did so with a freshman quarterback. Now Maryland, I think they got a pretty young roster, and I've learned that said young roster has a lot of potential. And even though I know Washington might be favored on the road, I'm actually gonna go with Maryland in this one. I'm liking the youth on this team, and they're already making an impact on the Big Ten. And yes, I know Washington's favored on the road, but I gotta go. But Maryland's at home. I could take those odds. And now we got an ACC battle between a Syracuse Orange taking on the SMU Mustangs. Like an idiot, I picked SMU last week, not knowing that their quarterback was out for the year, and as a result, the Qs got destroyed by Duke 38-3. SMU had a bye week last week; they desperately needed it, as they lost to TCU in the final. I think they call it the Iron Skillet Bowl rivalry, the final one in the foreseeable future. And yeah, I'm taking SMU to win. They're favored by almost 3 scores. Syracuse right now is in bandage form. I'm just gonna take the Mustangs. And now we got the Nebraska Cornhuskers taking on the Michigan State Spartans. And both teams had bye weeks, but last time we saw Michigan State, they had a decent battle with USC, just wasn't good enough. While Nebraska had a decent battle against Michigan, but again, wasn't good enough. I'm gonna roll with Nebraska to win this game as they're double-digit favorites. So that means they shouldn't win. They should not have a problem winning this one. Now we got Texas Tech taking on the University of Houston trap game. Houston had to go to overtime to get the win over Oregon State last week, while Texas Tech had a bye week, but last time we saw them, they completely annihilated Utah on the road. The NIL Red Raiders, I do think on paper, they should win this game, but beware Houston. I think Houston's going to make this a very close battle than you expected. Now we got the Minnesota Golden Gophers taking on the Minnesota got a win over Rutgers, while the went on the road, took care of business against Washington. The is number one ranked team in the country, almost 24-point favorites. They're at home. Everything points to an Ohio State win. I mean, everything points to the win. Now we got the Mississippi State Bulldogs taking on the Texas A&M Aggies. Mississippi State went to overtime against Tennessee last week, but they could not get the job done. While Texas A&M won a low-scoring battle against Auburn, where they failed to cover, ruining my bet. But 14.5 favorites, A&M should win. But again, Mississippi State is better than what people think. I think they could sneak on 1 or 2 SEC wins to get them in bowl play. I think that's their goal. Now we got Colorado taking on TCU. Colorado losing to BYU. TCU's coming off a tough Friday night loss to Arizona State. Now these two teams played each other last time we saw these two teams, it was 2 years ago. Deion Sanders made his debut, and Shedeur Sanders pretty much lit it up that game. But that's 2 years ago. We're now into the now, and TCU's favored by double digits. I think they shouldn't have a problem with Colorado here. Although this should be a fun watch. Now we have the Kansas Jayhawks taking on the UCF Knights. Kansas lost a tough home battle to Cincinnati, while UCF lost to Kansas State. Kansas, I do like their offense, but their defense really let them down last week. I think they could go on the road to get a win here. If if everything goes according to plan. But I'll say this: I will not be surprised if UCF wins. And then we have our after dark game of the week, and that is the Duke Blue Devils taking on the California Bears. Duke not only getting a win on the road against Syracuse, they completely annihilated them 38-3. Meanwhile, California went on the road, a long road trip. They got the win over Boston College as they looked kind of back to normal after that, whatever that game was against San Diego State. Back at home, after dark, anything can happen. I was actually going to lean towards Cal. I think Duke is another underrated team in football. Even if I can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth. I'm going to take the Blue Devils to win this game. But I will not be surprised if Cal wins it. This one can go in any direction. And finally, our game of the week. The Miami Hurricanes taking on the Florida State Seminoles. Miami had a bye week last week, but the last time we saw them, they took care of business with Florida. Although they made that game look very closer than you think. It was a closer battle than you think in that one. Florida, I think Miami pulled away very late in that game. And Florida State lost to Virginia in double OT. I honestly don't know what happened that game. I really honestly don't know. I don't have an explanation on why they lost. Maybe because it was Friday night, anything can happen. Who knows? This game will be played in Tallahassee. Because of that, Game Day spurred them, a Game Day site, to go to their second home in Alabama. And Miami is favored by 5 points. I feel like Florida State kind of need to win this game if they want to stay in the playoff race, or let alone stay in a tighter than expected ACC race. This one's a tough one to pick. But I think because Miami had that extra week of rest, I'm going to lean towards the Hurricanes to win. And that concludes Week 6 college football predictions. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Gamble safely. I'll see you next time.